Hey, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And this show is going to be called How to Be Happy and semicolon, Wake Up. And yesterday, I had a show that was how to be happy, semicolon, I forgot what I called after the semicolon, but I talked for almost 2.5 hours, going on 3 or 4, and then I got knocked off. And usually, when that happens, it's the battery dies or something of that nature, and it comes up. It kind of goes waiting for me to say goodnight. And I don't, and then it puts it up there. Well, maybe tomorrow, but everyone thinks it has, right? And when you wake up, you realize that nothing has changed. I mean, there wasn't a cup right there, and then there wasn't. Right? Now there is. So it has been raining, and so everyone else is, melting away. My friends in New York, they're in a heat flash, and they said, they haven't had any rain all summer. Now, that's all I've had is rain, right? Every week it rains at least 3 inches. Not, but it does it, what it really does that has been nice is it rains at night. And the last few days has kind of turned around where it doesn't rain as much as night and rains during the day, like right now. Can you hear that? Do I have my finger on the button? Trying to put it in a place there. Well, I just have to hope that I'm not infringing on the volume or anything. But, how to wake up. What is wake up? Wake up is, there's two little... These are selfies, Oh, please, Sensei, give me my mantra. I need my mantra. I want my mantra. And that seems to be how pretty much everyone is today. Yesterday, a few people watched, and it seemed to affect them severely in a positive way. Maybe that's why it was knocked off. Eddie Boy was on, and I hope whatever I said to you, Ed, it actually helps you out. Well, somebody jumped in and jumped right out, right? And and they missed the story. See, you missed it. This book here. I don't know if you ever heard of Floyd Fest, right? But that's a music festival that's up in Floyd, Virginia. And this guy named Chris, who was, he had a food bus, and he would go around to different festivals, right? That was his gig. And he met this girl, hippie girl, and from Holland, I think she was, and she came from a rich bank and real estate family in Charlotte. I used to in Charlotte. I used to have to talk that way when my voice box was crushed, and before I learned how to switch the air around in my throat, I used to talk that way. And everyone has problems, and all I can say is, what did I do with my phone? There it is. All I can say is, every problem you have, when I was broke the little stirrup in my ear, so I couldn't hear out of that ear. She broke the orbit in my eye, so I couldn't see out of that eye. She broke my jaw, and the first punch she got me, and I didn't know what happened. I was just like not getting out of basically they were having this in the 50s and duck and cover things in school. And our school was like, 10 blocks from Empire State Building. And so, we had this big window in the classroom, right? And it looked right up at the Empire State Building. I mean, it was really pretty. It was really nice. Nice something to daydream on. And, when it was sunny, it would gleam. When it was cloudy, it would shine. When the fog was there, it would move through the fog. It was very enigmatic building, right? And so, not as enigmatic as the Chrysler building. And that was also in that window. And that Chrysler building is very interesting because Tesla wired it with induction coils. And I had a photograph of Einstein, Tesla, and Mr. Chrysler on top of, and they had the scaffolding up, and they're on top of the building where the big point is, and Tesla's putting this globe on top. And J.P. Morgan cut the dynamic potential of Tesla's technology in 1897 with him pulling the plug, euphemistically, on the Wardenclyffe experiment, which was out there in eastern Long Island. And Tesla had turned pretty much all from Montauk to Shoreham into one big phased array radar in the 1890s, right? And he was bouncing radio waves off of all the planets and out into space, which were basically microwave, right? And he phased array. We now have phased array today. Because he was propagating these waves, and they were not just microwaves, they were scalar waves, which were way more efficient and way better at doing whatever you wanted to do electronically than the Hertzian wave or microwaves or any of that spectrum, right? So I got a picture, and what that was Tesla was absorbing the energy from the vacuum. The vacuum is that space between the parallel universes that when you can harmonically, vibrate that membrane, it's like your kitchen faucet, and it's called a tap. And so you could tap unlimited amount of electricity. So Tesla, all the motors in there for the pumps and the elevators and air conditioning, and he actually had air conditioning before anybody had air conditioning, because he was actually using a heat pump and not a refrigerant, right? Because back in the day, the first all the big commercial refrigerators were ammonia, which is pretty deadly stuff. Right? Before Mr. Rockefeller's Mr. DuPont, got Freon. And little do they know that Freon was actually more deadly to us through destroying the ozone than ammonia was. Ammonia, at least, just an individual person here or there. The Freon went up in, because it was such a light and vibratory atom, it went woo, and helium, because Freon's kind of in the family of helium, and so it went straight up there in the troposphere and just chomped away, eating very gleefully at the ozone, which protects us. And that's why when at about 40 years of using that is why our the CFCs kind of chewed up the ozone, and that's why the cancer level went along with all of the zenes, benzene, all the PBCs, all of those guys, industrial chemicals. And they just blithely, put that waste out into the rivers and the lakes and the seas. And and that's why the bottom of our and we'd fill big barges with all of the nastiest of nastiest chemicals. The PCBs that GE was using to make transformers, and all of the dioxin that was being manufactured at paper mills, and they put them in 50-barrel drums and put them on, truck them off to be shipped out on barges out into the ocean and then dropped into the ocean. And that's what we're dealing with right now, right? And this basically this little you know global warming thing really isn't so much. I mean, if you go to Edgar Casey or his clubhouse down there on the shore of North Carolina, and you read his because he'd go to sleep and he'd have these visions. He'd wake up and his wife and his assistant would type what he had as a dream, or he would tell the visions in his sleep, and he would speak to them and tell them, and they would type it down. So he talked about Earth changes, about the flipping of the poles, and the scientists have dug up evidence showing that the poles of this planet have changed many, many times. And each time it does a real number on whatever was going on before it was going on. And there's a lot of, he talked about Atlantis rising, and it did, down there in Bimini. And they don't talk about it much, but, and they have, a real Area 51 in the sea down there. Sandra, how you doing, girl? Did you see yesterday's show? That was quite interesting. It hasn't shown up on my, back, on my shows yet. I don't know whether it was because they didn't like it, because we talked about a lot of interesting things. And Ed came on, and we all need to pray and send love to Ed, because he's, we all go through hard times. We all need somebody to have your back. Ed needs to have our back. The cadre needs to pray for Ed. So let's do it right now. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from evil. As was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. And in every day and every way, let us take the peace of the earth and make it stronger with love's co-creation. And in this prayer, let it be heard, that word of love for Ed's broken heart. Let us all feel with empathy, and Jesus' unconditional forgiveness. Let us be here for Ed, so Ed doesn't have to punish himself. He can take onto him our love. Aho. And Tag showed up, that amazing girl, and sending love to Ed. Thank you, Sandra. So, Sandra, you and I, let us be quiet for a second and visualize that love that you are sending going straight into Ed. Okay? And listen to the rain. And every day and every way, let us take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. Let us serve love's co-creation for all our relations, and love's one love in work in progress. Our life is not rushing towards a finish line. Our life is living every moment to its fullest, being our best. We can't be perfect, but we can do our best. So in every day and every way, let us do our best to take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. And let us take this peace that we feel now in our hearts and send it to Ed. Oh. So, Sandra, did you hear any of the stories I said yesterday? I was all over the place, as I normally am. I even forgot. So I'm trying to be, make the algorithm happy, and all my shows are, how to be happy. YouTube is a how to, how to fix it kind of channel. So I'm trying to play to the algorithm how to be happy, semicolon. And so how to be happy, semicolon. Today's word is wake up. And I started out the show talking about all the things that are going on that have been going on, since ever. And this epoch that we are experiencing, which we think is his story, really isn't. It's just 60,000 years, since Mesopotamia, give or take. And if you read Plato and Euripides and Socrates, they'll all talk about times before this time, right? And why the Greeks are so great is that they traveled around, met the last of the last makers, sat at their feet and listened to their stories when they were young travelers in their 20s. And they wrote things down and they came back and they studied on them the best they could from the assets that they had in front of them, their libraries. And then they started to experiment to see what it was. And that's what theater was. It was a experimental tool. I went to, well, more than once, but I went to Delphi in Greece with Donna Ann, right? Our first European trip. And Donna, that's when we were in England and Ireland. Then we traveled over to Greece, right? And when we were traveling, we took a ferry from Swansea to Cork, right? And and something was up with Don. Don and I had been now together probably 2 years plus, right? And we got married in England. So we're now married, and this was like our honeymoon, but our whole life was a honeymoon, right? And and we got married because Don didn't want to get married. She hated the church, she hated the state, she hated the kids, and she, pretty much hated everybody. But I was her bolto, meaning all the, and I've had amazing women in my life, and I've always been their dog boy. It's like I'm their dog, you know. She called me um, Balto, right? And because I got her into herbs because um, Pat Zunick, greatest herbalist there was, and her father was a super duper basketball coach at UMass in Amherst. And anyway, so Pat and I were a thing for years, and then we're best friends. I mean, pretty much all my intimate girlfriends, whether, I mean, we either stay that way, and then when we move forward, we're still best of friends. And Donna Ann, she hung around with Catholics too much because when, she split, you know, she didn't want to get married. And then we were doing a photo shoot in London and she refused to work unless we got married. I said, but wow, what? And what it was before we left, her father, I met her family, her two brothers and her mom and her dad. Her dad was brilliant and a great athlete. I mean, and he was about to go up to college. Korean War started. He goes off. He comes and he's really brilliant. So they made him a radar guy. So he was Mr. Radar. And then he got out and he didn't go to college because he basically got his high school sweetheart pregnant, and they had Donna Ann, and so he had to get a job, and so he went to work for Sperry as a radar. And so he was brilliant, so he worked there, but he had no college degree, so they paid him like what they'd pay a janitor. But he was in charge of 3 engineering groups, and he made the Nike Zeus radar and computer system. This guy was, and so he met me, And he said, "Al, let's take a ride." So we took a ride, and it was middle of winter, and we went to the Eisenhower Golf Course, was public golf course in Long Island. Well, not quite an ice slip, and it was like a parking lot. With no foliage, no nothing. The grass was like a billiard ball table, and he was sticking every shot. He should have been a professional golfer, right? But his wife, all she wanted was stay home, watch TV, and eat bonbons and shop. And he had to work, work, work. He had three kids, and the only thing that he truly adored was Donna. Right? And he hated his life. He kind of enjoyed his work, but he saw everyone just move past him, use his discoveries, and become famous and make a lot of money. Anyway, so he said, "You're the one." And I said, "What?" He said, "You're the one." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "You're going to marry my daughter and make her happy because you've already made her happy. I've seen all the really loser boyfriends she ever had, and I never say anything because if it made her happy, that's all I wanted for her. But they just, you know, she'd always have these terrible breakups, and that's why she went to San Francisco, get away from all of this. But you really are attentive and do I see it in you. All you're with her to make her happy and take care of her, and that's pretty. I'm the Aquarian's Aquarian, and that's what we do. We fix things, we fix people. We the thing that gives us the greatest joy is see other people happy. And then when we see people miserable and troubled and we try and fix it, right? But we also have this Spock analytical self where we are. The other side of why we're there is that it's our laboratory, you know, and everything is our laboratory, right? I'm out here in the middle of nowhere with seeing nobody, and it's just me and Sandra here watching the show, and she's still here, and I'm here to gauge it. So my reason for social activist, a scientist, artist, you name it, nightclub runner, owner, restaurant runner, owner, builder, real estate guy, and basically I never had any money because money I wasn't interested in. And then when I got into a thing, I mean, a lot more money than and so I didn't have to even work to make a lot of money. I worked period between 2004, three, maybe or two, maybe 2002 to 2014, or maybe three, 2003 to I think it was the Shamanic ceremony with Miami, my buddy Jeremiah Eric, and I stumbled into the corporate. I had a friend of mine in New York back in the day. He was an artist too, and he married a rich girl whose dad was Mr. Real Estate. And instead of being an artist, the dad was executive banking. And all he did was his daddy kept getting his father places that he could represent daddy. So he didn't make money, so the other taking care of that. I understand. Florida, they had a house in Boynton Beach, and I went to a New Age little séance. This woman, there was a you know what do they call them? New Age bookstore. Let's just call it that, by a Russian psychic guy. He was pretty cool. And once I walked in there, started talking to him, read his, oh wow, you're great. So he kind of said, oh, we're gonna have this, we have these salons here. You need to come. So where I was living wasn't that far from there. So, I would come. Always pretty girls, and it was always fun, and people were always smoking sacrament, and it was nice teas and little cookies, and it was very nice. Very it almost made me remember the good old days at the Theosophical Society upstate New York at Pumpkin Hollow, right? And and then I became part of the Thule Society and the ISIS Foundation, and we started the Green Door on Spring Street. It's either green door, blue door, purple door, some color of a door, and it was this building this George bought, and it was a one-stop center for everything. And the Whole Life Times and Expo um, moved from their little shoebox office into a floor of that building, right? And so these people in Boynton Beach were kind of like that, but they were like so full of themselves, it was like ridiculous. People, I'm a Reiki master, and they, remembered. I don't know if you guys remember, but the good old days when in the back of the DC Comics there was these advertisements for like superhero wear, and you could get these glasses allegedly gave you X-ray vision, and all they were these frames with cardboard things that had a like hypnotized circle with a little dot, so you could see through it, and that's supposed to be your X-ray glasses. So, um, meaning you could use those glasses and like look someone straight in the eye, and your eyeballs would come out of the glasses with a swirly thing, and you go, "You're getting sleepy. Look into my eyes. You're getting sleepy." I mean, I actually kind of did that, and it's called mesmerism. And what you do is you get the individual who wants to be hypnotized, and you get them to stop thinking about the squirrel in their brain. Right? Look into my eyes. You're getting sleepy. You take their attention away. That's called mesmerism, and that's what the watch was supposed to be for, and all that kind of stuff. Right? Yeah, and the metronome, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. These are all hokey tools you can use. I mean, they work, but there are other ways of doing it that are more uh, refined slash shamanic slash esoteric, and those aren't magic. They are just conscious intent. I am. You want to do something interesting. Be conscious intent. I am. Oh, let's do it now. There's nobody here. It's secret. It's a secret. No one's watching. Conscious intent. I am. Conscious intent. I am. Conscious intent. I am. Oh. Do that 3 times, and you'll start to be able to have a conscious intent. And the other one is, don't tell anybody. Conscious awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. So, I'm in Florida. You know, I'm going to sing, and there's my buddy. Jay. This girl who was married to my other buddy. Right? I said, where's Sammy? And she goes, oh, he's at home. Where's home? Oh, we have this nice house on the beach in Boynton Beach. I said, really? She, oh, you got to come home. We have a big house. We have a guest house. We have a big pool. We have a yacht. And she just checked off all the stuff they had that represented being super rich. Anyway, so, I was there at the thing, blah, blah, blah. We were blah, blah, blah. And then I said, let's go to your house. It'll be more interesting. Because this girl had some juice, energy, right? Where the other people were just, pretending. So we went back, and there he was, and it was like old home. He brought out the good stuff. We sat around the thing. We got kind of giggly. She knew I liked nitrous oxide. So she rolled out a tank. She said, "Here, I know you like this." So we all started laughing, and their kids were away at college, and so we took all our clothes off and jumped in the water and swam around like fish, and it was the best of times, right? So I stayed a week with those guys because they had 3 or 4 guest houses. They were right on there between the ocean. Part of the property was on the beach, and the other was on the intercoastal where they had their big boat. I mean, it was like a rich person's place, right? Big, and I would call it, as far as you could get in Boynton Beach, they had an estate, right? And they had 4 or 5 guest houses, which were the houses for their kids when they were teenagers, because they couldn't stand them having in the big house. So the kids were always having people over, and they had all these boats, and all the kids would show up by boat, and because they couldn't drive cars, and blah blah blah. Anyway, that was the lifestyle they lived, and so I got to know them, and it was in the winter time, so it was getting towards New Year's, and he had just built a high rise in Fort Lauderdale, one of the first, and he wanted me to be at their New Year's Eve party because he was like Donald Trump. He had the whole top floor, but it was really, I was in Donald Trump's apartment in Trump Tower, and it is because he wanted to be on top of everybody, even the people who were rich who had penthouses. So he wanted to be above them. So they had to squish him between the penthouses and the air conditioning equipment. So their ceilings are in Donald's house are actually quite low, and he tries to get over with it and making everything gold. In the guest toilet, I mean, they had a gold toilet. I mean, real. I mean, it's cold as ice. It's like. Anyway, I diverge. So these people had serious cash, serious stuff, and they still loved each other. And the kids came home before they went off to college because when they came, they were there for Christmas, and then they split that week before New Year's, and went to Bahamas or wherever they went to, and did all kinds of stuff. James, I checked out video today, Roanoke, VA. Really nice looking place. I remember you and John talking about it. Yep, that was my old school, and that school was built by George and Inga Solanovich, two amazing artists from Europe who ran away from Adolf. Right, and they only got out of Europe at the end of the war. They just had to keep running. They just had to keep getting away, but they never got away. And they had their first kid, Mishka. Um, she was in a drainage ditch along the side of a road, and a Nazi doctor was delivering the baby. So she had her legs up over his shoulders, and he was pulling the kid out. And a U.S. Um, a fighter attack, ground attack aircraft was just buzzing them and shooting at them, with cannon, boom, 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 and the dirt was exploding all around, and that's what Mishka came into the world, being shot at by a cannon from the air, a U.S. Because they were in a kill anything zone in someplace Latvia or Estonia or France or who knows where they were, and and end of the war like 40, 40 early 45, spring 45, and the war wasn't quite over, but we were killing anything we could kill. It was like the guys in their fighter planes were shooting people on the ground as sport. Just like Howard Zinn talks about, weeks before the end of the war, everybody was like, knew it was the end of the war. They're just waiting for people to sign the paper and make the deal. And so they were still bombing stuff. So, they stopped bombing stuff that wasn't in Germany, a year before. But the last thing he goes on, his group goes and bombs a town in France, right? Where there's this little, bastion of Nazis. Well, not just German soldiers. They couldn't get away, and they were left there because they weren't, they weren't fighting. They weren't doing anything. They were just staying in their little camp. And the real deal was General de Gaulle. There were some political people in that town that he didn't like. And so they called him up and said, listen, we want to experiment with these new bombs we have. What place can we still bomb in France? Because they wanted to take these bombers over and not get shot at. So they didn't want to go over Germany. So he gave them, oh, yeah, bomb this town. So they bombed a town with 17,000 people. And it was the first usage of napalm. And they dropped it, and they killed over 30,000 people because a lot of other people kind of realized that people weren't getting shot at in this little town, and so the place was just full of innocent people. And we bombed it and killed, and in the worst way, not just bombed, boom, but napalm. We incinerated them. Very similar to Hiroshima and Nagasaki or Dresden, right? or many other cities in Japan, Tokyo. I mean, we killed over 500,000 people in one night in Tokyo. Nobody ever said anything about any of those kind of things. We killed 6 million people in Southeast Asia in our time, and the war wasn't just in Vietnam. It was in Thailand. It was in Cambodia. It was in all of those surrounding. We killed 6 million people in Southeast Asia, and to this day, between 5 and 12,000 people die from the ordnance that's still all over the place. And kids are out there in the woods, boom. Farmers are in there, boom. So um, and Diana made a big deal about that, right? And she was all against mines and unexploded ordnance and all the rest. And the biggest manufacturer of this and the biggest user of this was the United States. So she was, once she got out of the royal family, you know, she was making a big brouhaha about it, right? She used her, and people loved her, so right. So she was using that, and she was getting to really make that a big deal, and about at the height of her making it a big deal, she dies. And she gets in a car crash, and she doesn't die in a car crash. And the ambulance shows up, and they leave her in the car for over 3 hours, and she bleeds out, just like John Lennon. When what's his name shot him, that kid whose father was a really good friend of George H. in Texas, Hinckley. I think it was Hinckley. Um, he was 22, and you know, didn't hit any organs in John. The bullets went in and out. He just had holes in him. He's bleeding. Right. So this cop car showed up and basically put him in a chair gurney and strapped him down and left him in that car to bleed to death. He didn't die of gunshot trauma per se. He died to bleed to death. Right. And then that car drove him to the hospital. He said, "Listen, let me out of this thing. I'm going to walk to the hospital. It's just right over there." And they took him all the way downtown, right, near the medical examiners, and put in this really rinky-dink hospital down there. And he dies in that hospital, right? And because they really know what to do, right? Because they're more an administrative kind of hospital, and that's the story. If you check it out, blow your friggin' mind. I checked out a video today. Let's see, James. The Star of Roanoke. That's famous trademark. Yeah. I mean, it's made by the more groovy thing was in the market building on the ground floor that had this atrium that was really great. And the same, basically, it was a guy who had a neon business, and he wanted to, know his get, people weren't using enough. Because in his day, Roanoke had neon light all over the place, for sodas and coffees, and because it was a railroad town, and so lots of things were being delivered, taken here. It was like the same thing as like an Amazon warehouse. Roanoke was a gigantic Amazon warehouse, a big center of North Southern Railroad, and it was also a transportation hub, right? And the other interesting thing is that Roanoke, just like Asheville, North Carolina, had electric trolley cars all over the place. I mean, every neighborhood you could get, for a nickel, you could get on there. And when I was there in the late '60s, they still kind of had them, and they still had them in Asheville too. And now, if Asheville had kept their trolleys, man, that town would be really even more groovy than it is today, because it'd be like San Francisco and they could have like had no cars. They could have big, because there's two big interstates. See, Asheville is, you don't want to live in a town, Asheville, because Interstate 40 and 26 go right through the middle of the city, right? And a million cars drive through the city of Asheville every day. And it's in a big valley. and there is no like little niche where the wind comes blowing through. So Asheville has some of the worst, if not the worst, um, air pollution, deadly air pollution, um, than any place in the United States, right? If not the world. I mean, those towns in Southeast Asia, they probably are worse. So, and I mean, that's we're cleaning up the world by having an economic collapse. We seem to do that all the time. And the burning of carbon, plants love carbon. If we had not deforested the planet in the last 40 years, we would not have a problem with carbon. But we did that on purpose because the real cause of global warming is not your car or the coal-fired power plant. I mean, those aren't good. I mean, the things that are really bad about them is the ozone that it makes down close to the ground, and also the fine particulate matter. I mean, if you've ever been behind a diesel bus or diesel truck or a diesel whatever, you see, when they change gear, a big puff of black smoke. Well, that's particulate matter, meaning down to the micron level, right? But there's a zillion billion particles in that puff. And then it just but it's still there, but it's going out, and you're breathing it in. And that is the real nasty part of the oil-based, carbon-based um, transportation and energy issue, right? But what's really causing the global thing is what's going on in our solar system, in our galaxy, and our universe. Because we're cruising, tomorrow's or later today. Let's see, how long I've been doing this? 42 minutes. I'm going to switch over to my phone because I can show photos a lot easier on my phone, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit longer and then bail from this. And within 5-10 minutes, I'm going to switch over to my phone. And I'm going to see which one works better because yesterday's show was a really good show. And I don't know if it's gone up or if it ever will because my phone just, and I don't know whether someone in the higher ups pulled the plug or if my phone just died. Because when I went back and got it revived, and because it shut itself off, and I plugged it in to be recharged, came back on, and it said it had 40% still left in the battery. So something else shut it down. I don't know what. Maybe my fingers, because I have no idea. I can't hardly see anything, and I have no idea what I'm touching when I'm talking because I'm thinking about talking to you guys. And so anyway, the Star of Roanoke was just an advertising gimmick because this guy had a lot of neon tube left over, and he stuck it up there. And when that happened, Roanoke was still known as the Big Lick because it was a central railroad area, and they would, bring in the cows from the west, and right along the James River and the Roanoke River, there was big sick salt deposits. So they would just let the they had the railroad tracks go by this place, and and it came up so the cows could just walk out of the railroad car and then go drink and lick salt, and then they would be collected and put on other trains to go to Chicago or New York or Philly or Boston or wherever. And that's kind of what it was known as the Big Lick. So James, go Google the Big Lick. Rosemary Baby was filmed in the Dakota, yeah, with George and his family was, and everybody else during filming. One of the crew jumped out of a window. Yes, it was a very, very energetic, strange building. It was really like it was very one of the few apartment houses where instead of like the front door being right on the sidewalk, it was kind of round, and so the road kind of went around the Dakota, and you would drive in, and they had like a little circle, and they had a little awning or cupola coming over that so when you got out of your car, you didn't get wet, right? And they had a fountain on one side and grass, and it was very nice, right? And it was a very fancy lobby, but really old. And there were a lot of they had really great apartments. They were like houses, more than an apartment. It was George John Lennon and Yoko Ono home was quite nice, right? I think I told you the story. I met John because I had a girlfriend who lived on the west side near Lincoln Center, and across the street from Lincoln Center was this great pharmacy that had a counter, an old school counter that had great breakfast, great lunch, great dinner, great Sundays. It was better than Schraff's in a lot of ways. They had their own dairy upstate and made their own ice cream, and it was really yummy. And what was really great out front, they had this newspaper stand that had virtually every newspaper in the world. Everyone in America. The Washington Post, L.A. Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, you name it, Boston Herald, all newspapers in America, plus all the London Times, the Sun, the Financial Times. Had all the Russian ones and French ones. So you wanted any news because in that neighborhood, you know, the UN was just, that was around the 50s on the west side. UN's on Second Avenue around 30s. And so, it was just a few blocks. So a lot of diplomats lived there. There was a diplomat row, 38th Street from Second Avenue to Park, to the Park, or near the Fifth Avenue. Was all the diplomat houses were there, right? And so anyway, I'm all over the place with this story. So kicked off Roanoke, kicked off the Dakota, back to Donna and I leaving England to go to Sweden to visit our friend, and his wife got a hold of us. Oh no, yes. Did we do Greece first, or we go to Sweden? No. We went to Sweden first, and then we flew from Sweden to Greece, right? So we we did that, right? And so on the ferry from Swansea to Gothenburg, right? And it's like a party boat because the Swedes drink like fish, but the booze in Sweden, it costs a fortune. Like a can of beer is like $15. A pretty mediocre bottle of wine is $50. So, and they had no hard liquor really except vodka, right? Everyone's making that in their bathtub. So we took the thing over, and I knew something was up with her. And Donna, she had her moods, but mostly, we had been together for 2 and something years, and I had, plumbed all her moods and told her it was cool and that she wasn't nuts, and I loved her, and I felt that everything she thought she was crazy over, because everyone told her she was crazy because she was super intuitive, could tell anything, and people, you're just crazy. No, I said, this is a gift because her grandma was a crone. So Donna was a crone. Donna Ann McAdams is a crone. I'm letting it out, right? She's a world famous photographer. Go, if you're looking stuff up, James, go look up Donna Ann McAdams, right? And she was my first wife, my training wife, right? And we had a studio, a photo studio in New York called DNA, Donna and Al, right? And it's what's interesting. He got exactly what she wanted, and everyone will get exactly what they want. It may not be what they need, or even what that makes them feel good. But so go take a picture of her. So when she was with me, she was always laughing, always dancing, always just having a good time because that's what I was doing. And that's what I try and be the good example of and get people to do in their own heart, right? So anyway, we we're on that ferry, and it had these little discotheques, the size of a closet, and I'm squeezing my way into the bar to get a drink for me and my sweetie, and the ferry is like a big bus. You get a seat, and they're in, a big room in the ferry, and each of these little caverns with seats in them, like airplane seats. Sat like maybe 200 people, and there were about eight of those. But they had cabins too for the rich folk because they were wickedly expensive. But the tradition was, once the boat left the harbor, it was like bingo. They would call numbers, and whoever, you'd look at your ticket number. If that number came up, you came in and you got a suite, which was sweet, right? And so, and there were like maybe 50 suites for 50 rich people, but the rest of there were maybe 2,000 people on these ferries, and trucks and cars and you name it. And so these were big boats. And so, and we're going across the North Atlantic, from Swansea, England, to Gothenburg, Sweden, right? And it was like a lake. It wasn't a ripple, and it was a full moon, and it was just beautiful. And it was summertime, and everybody was having a good time and singing and dancing. And on every deck, they were singing and dancing. And the Swedes, they were having sex every which way. Any place they could prop somebody up, they were going at it. And so Don she's like, something's bothering her. So I said, honey, what's wrong? Because we could go back to our seats and sit there where nobody was, right? Nobody was in those like, but since nobody was there, that was kind of roomy, but it was lit up super bright with fluorescent light. There's the hallways and the decks and all of that were very romantic. So anyway, we're in this little nightclub bar, and I kind of squeeze in between these two archetypical Swedish bombshells, blonde hair, real tall, basically wearing the brassieres in their underpants, right? And they're like showing it off, right? And I, they kind of squeeze me between them. So I have one breast coming out this side of my head, and another girl's breast over here, and one in my mouth, and I'm trying to spit the nipple out and order my drink for my wife. And I can feel her eyes behind me burning into my head, and so she's getting upset somehow, and the girls go almost in unison. Hey, you're cute. You want to come back? We want a suite. We want to get fucked. Come with us. We'll show you a good time. And we're from Gothenburg, which is like the sex city of Sweden. So I'm going, I'm just married on my honeymoon, and there's my wife back there. And this one goes, oh, she's cute. We'll use her too. Yeah, we like it that way. Children, no, she's almost 30. And when I said that, she like clunked me in the back of the head. Anyway, I turned around, and she, you're talking about, what's her name's baby. She looked like the devil. Fire was coming out of every, her nose, her ears, her eyes, and she's twirling around, and everyone is like freaking out, and they get out of her way, and she shoots out of the bar. And I go, I gotta go. And I turn around to leave, and the bar, it takes me like 5 minutes to get myself out of there, right? So I get out. She's not to be seen, right? And I'm looking every which way for her. I go I spend an hour or two looking, honey, and she's not to be seen. And so the purser comes by, and I've like knocked on all the suites doors. Oh, you want to? Oh, you come back? Oh, come on in. And I go. The purser says, "Sir, what's wrong?" I said, "I lost my wife." He goes, "Oh." And I said, "We just got married. We're on our honeymoon." Oh, they haven't found her anywhere. I said, "No." He goes, "Well, she probably jumped overboard." I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, it happens. We every year we have 30, 40 suicides off the boat. A lot of people, they get drunk, they get upset, or they slip, but we lose 30, 40 people a year." And he goes, "Listen, this is what it is. When we pull into a Gutenberg, you, find me at the front of the boat, and I check everyone off the list. And after everyone gets off, she doesn't come by. We'll go look. We don't. She's fallen off. We'll go up to the captain. We'll fill out the paperwork, and that'll be that." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I suggest you just go back to the bar and have a few drinks. Try to relax." What? So I don't do that. I go back to where our seats were, thinking, well, once she cools down, she'll come back here, right? And I sit there for the next 40 hours, and these guys from Egypt, are playing cards and smoking stinky cigars, and you know. But I'm being the dutiful husband, being loyal, true blue, waiting for her to show up, right? And it's kind of by the window, and I'm looking at the beautiful sea, and I'm crying, and well, I gotta tell her father. He said I was the one, and I was not supposed to take care of her, and I'm and so and the Egyptian guys just kind of look at me and hold up this rot gut stuff they have, like, you want to drink, and so I'm like, oh, oh. So pulling, she doesn't show up. Gutenberg, we get there. I go to the front of the boat. I'm standing next to the guy. He checks everyone out. Well, there's no one here. So your girl is probably off the boat. So, we'll just go fill out the paper. We'll go see the captain. So we go up this staircase that's on the side of the boat from, the place where the people get off the boat, which is like not where the cars and trucks and buses are, but the next one up. And there was four or five other levels up before you got into where the captain is and all that. So we're walking up this staircase, and I'm looking over, and I see all of the lifeboats, right? And there's one lifeboat where the canvas is thrown up, and I can't see in it, but the canvas, but all the ones are all tied down, and that one is up. And I say to the guy, I said, "Is that supposed to be that way?" He goes, "No." I said, "Let's go take a look." And so we go down there, and there in the lifeboat was Donna Ann. And she's drunk out of her mind because in the supplies there, they had whiskey, really good whiskey, right? And they had food, and she ate all the food, and the thing was rocking like this, and and she threw up all over the place, and she was still, and she looked up and she goes, "Oh, you're the best. You're the best." And I looked around, and where that boat was right where I was sitting at the window. So she saw me crying and waiting there, not being with the girls. And she goes, "I don't know why I got so mad. I love you so much. Oh, you're the best." And I'm like, I said, "Donna, how come you just didn't get out of the boat and come see me if you knew there I was?" "Well, getting in, I was so angry. I just came out here, and I was just so angry. And this breeze blew up, and the flap flew over there, and I looked, and there was all these orange life vests, and there was a thing that said food, and this other thing said medical whiskey, and I really wanted a drink, and so." I just got up and I jumped in and I went into this pile of life vests, and it was like a bed, and then I got into the food and got into the booze, and then I got drunk, and then I threw up, and then I woke up around 2 in the morning and saw you there crying. And I said, "So if you got in, why didn't you get out?" "Well, getting in was easy. Getting out, when I got up, I wasn't as angry. I wasn't angry at all, and I just loved you so much, and I just wanted to be with you. And then when I decided to get out, the boat was swinging, and there was about a foot and a half between the railing, and the railing was about 5 feet above the deck, and I couldn't. It was one thing to get up on that thing and just jump into this pile of things. It was another to try to get step on the railing, and then I couldn't do that. I got scared, and because I end up in the ocean, didn't want to die. And I looked in their boat. I said, "Well, you polished off that bottle of booze. How come you just didn't throw the bottle at the window? Get my attention." And she goes, "I didn't think of that." Anyway, the purser was somewhere between amused, bemused, and angry at her for doing that, because it was probably $1,000 worth of damage of vomiting on this and drinking that and eating all this. You have to redo all of that. And he was on train. "Well, we're going to arrest you." And I said, "See ya, bye." And so I grabbed her, and we had no real furniture, no nothing. And we left, and we went off to see my friend who was trying to kill himself. And this guy, I knew him from. He was from Boston when I was at Worcester, right? And he met his Swedish girlfriend in Boston, Common, at an anti-war thing, and he went back to Sweden, so he didn't have to go to Vietnam, right? Because he wasn't in college, and his strat board was looking for him, and and he was hiding out with me in Worcester, right? I met him in Worcester in the Dunkin' Donut shop, and so his wife got a hold of us when we were in London and said, "Hey, you've got to come here because he's tried to kill himself a couple times, and no one has a clue of why, and he shouldn't. He's real famous. His business is doing great. Uh, we're happy. We got kids. We live in a nice house. We have money. Everything is great. One thing that made him sad, his mom died of cancer." I was like, "Oh, okay." So, and that's why we were going to Sweden to see my friend. And so anyway, we were in Gutenberg, and we stayed there a few days because um, her mother was going to stay with the kids, and her mother was worked in the hospital where my friend was in, and so she was going to keep a good eye on him and take care of the kids. And in Sweden, everything's taken care of. I mean, they didn't have to worry about paying any bills. They had, because it was a medical emergency, they actually had medical people to take care of whatever they needed. Right? Does America have that? No. We have spent almost an eighth of $1 trillion on giving weapons to kill people in Ukraine, and that money could have paid for single payer health care in America and could have paid for the readdress of the racial issues, and could have addressed education in America and given everyone free college, not just forgive their debt, but given them. When I went to college, college was, if you went to a state school, it was pretty much free, right? But I got rid of that. They didn't want people to be educated, right? And to be free and footloose and fancy free, right? So we're there, we're in Gutenberg, and Gutenberg's a great town. I love Gutenberg. And we went around and saw um, my old haunts in Gutenberg, because I hung out in Sweden before I met Donna. And I stayed with my friends too. And so I was starting to think about why he wanted to kill himself. And so I basically, we spent 3 nights there, 4 days, and then my friend's wife showed up, and she had some business in Gutenberg, so she took care of that, and we stayed in a nice hotel instead of the kind of hostel we were in, and so that was nice. And then we went to her house, and in Sweden they have amazing trains, and went right from Gutenberg to the little town of Forshuga, and from Forshuga they had buses that were they were like trolley buses. They had a wire up there. It was one of those things that was a electric internal combustion engine. It's kind of what the Japanese little hybrids. We invented the hybrid in the 1930s in California. The United States had the best transportation system in the world before we built interstates. Right? Interstates were built to be military. They used to be called the military highway. Right? Go Google that one up, James. Military highway. It was called Eisenhower Interstate Military Highway System, and that was what they used to call it before they called it the interstate. So, it was to transport military goods just in case of nuclear war. Blah blah blah. So anyway, we get to Fort Sugar. We go go to the homestead. We get cleaned up, and I said, I'm going to go see my buddy, just me, right, without everybody, right. So I show up, and his mother-in-law had been saying, Al's going to show up soon, because she knew me, And so he was like looking forward to that. It was like, the shrinky person said he was in serious issues, right? And so when I went to see him, I first made, because, his mother in law was you know, I don't know what, she wasn't quite a doctor. She was more administrator, but, she was on top of his medical needs 100% and getting him the doctors, right? And so I said, I need to talk to his shrink, right? And had he been seeing a shrink before he started to try and do this? And she goes, a little bit. Yes, he was sad. He was depressed. No one could understand why. He wouldn't talk. So anyway, I went and talked to the shrinky person and said, "Hi, I'm Al. Oh, I've heard a lot about it. He talks about you." And Mrs. Woodsy, she talks about you. Yes, and she says you're a psychologist. I said, "Well, I've got my own brand." And she giggles. She goes, "Oh, I understand. You're more old school European then." And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Well, so am I." And so we talked about, old school psychology. And then I said, "So what is his problem?" And he goes, "Well, his mother died and his father wouldn't let, he had money and he kept trying to get, once he started having kids, he wanted um, the mother to come over and, and his father wouldn't let her. And mother died of cancer. And he felt really responsible. And I realized what the issue was that his father, when the letters would show up, he would throw them away because when my friend left, his father said, I don't have a son anymore, right? Because his father was a Marine, and was in World War II. And so, he wanted his son to go off to Vietnam and kill people, right? So he wanted his son to be a Marine and not a musician. So anyway, so I understood this. So I said, so okay, that's why he was sad. Why did he kill himself? Try to kill himself? He said, well, he was not responding to my therapy, so I suggested that he might kill himself. I said, what? She said, well, his, I said, listen, he's got two little kids, a wife, and well, they're taken care of. She has a very prosperous business. Her family is very well to do. They had a nice house. They don't owe any money. I said, but how do kids grow up without a father? Well, she'd find another man. And I virtually jumped across the table and tried to strangle this bitch, right? And they called the mother-in-law was outside the door, and she came in and kind of restrained me and dragged me off and said, "We're going to go see my son now." And she says, "I think it's best that you have nothing to do with this, at at this point any further." And the doctor goes, "Okay, I won't." So we go see my friend, and she goes, "I want you to go in." She's, the mother-in-law says, "Go in there by yourself and talk to him. He's been waiting for you." So I do. So, yo, what is going on with you, muttonhead? And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "You trying to freaking kill yourself twice, not just once. Once could be an accident. Twice, you were trying to do it. And they would have, if you weren't living in Sweden, you'd be freaking dead. Your kids wouldn't have babies, wouldn't have daddy, wouldn't, And he goes, started weeping. "Oh, I'm just a failure. I'm just, my mother, I said, "Listen, guy, that was then. This is now. How long have you known me?" About 20 years. And so, how long have we been friends? 20 years. When did you leave America after meeting me? About 2 years. I said, so for the last 18 years, we've been buds. We've been talking. We've been communicating, right? And then you kind of dropped off the screen for the last 6 months. Well, you got married and went to. And I said, no, 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 no. I was talking to your wife. I was talking to your mother-in-law. Why not you? "Well, and I said, no. So in those 20 years, what do I do mostly? As well, you get involved in something, you work really hard, you make a nice chunk of change, and then you take a vacation for about a year." I said, yes. "When is the last time you took a vacation?" And he thought about it. He goes, "Never." I said, yes. He says, "Well, I'm a musician and I travel around and I do gigs everywhere. I kind of see, I stay in hotels. I see that." I said, "That's not a vacation. You're working and you're away from the people you love. So you're stressed out by that and staying in hotels. And no, even if it's a nice hotel, it's still not there with your kids and your wife." And he had a really nice recording studio in his house too. I mean, he had a great house, really beautiful house, right up against the forest, mountains right behind. It was just really gardens everywhere. It was her grandma's house. It was like really, really, really. It was like Sunnybrook Farms. Anyway, I said, "So, buddy, when you're getting out of here, the first thing we're going to do is take a vacation. You know, all the time I came to visit you, I did it well because you're my bud and I love your kids and your wife and your mom-in-law and everybody here in Fort Sugar. But you showed me how I could just get on the airplane in Stockholm and go take a trip anywhere in the world I wanted to." So we did that, right? And we all, the kids, Donna, mother-in-law, wife, everybody, we went off to Spain. Had great Mallorca, had a great time. Then we came back, and Donna and I set up shop in their house, and we just started taking trips. So one of the trips we took, my quasi good friend in New York, John, who's the most Catholic Christian neurotic person I ever knew, and I was at the seminary with him, and he strived. He had to be he A-lister in everything. The smartest guy, the highest grades, cum laude, athlete in like five different things. That he just stressed himself out to the point where he rotted out his colon. He had diverticulitis in his gene pool and got it really bad, and they took out his colon and gave him a ileostomy, and he had to shit through a bag for the rest of his life. And he did stuff like that all the frigging time. So I left him with our loft in Brooklyn and Don's cat, Burke, was there. And Burke loved that loft because it was like 17,000 square feet with tons of mice and rats he could go hunting. And he was just happy, right? And so all John had to do was change the litter box. And the cat didn't care. He would go off on another corner of the building and crap over there. So the Donna, once we were on our way to go to Greece, um, basically, and we weren't going with my friends from Sweden because, my buddy, he kind, he hit homeostasis. He was going to write a lot of songs about this, you know, about sorrow and how to, we talked and talked and talked, and he took notes about, living in the moment and moving forward and all the things I tell you guys. He wrote songs about. In Because he was famous. He What made him famous? He wasn't like the Swedes. What's that name? That that Swedish band that took over everything. The girls and the guys. Anyway, he sang Swedish folk songs. A boy from Southie in Boston learned how to speak Swedish in like he was Swedish and sang old Swedish folk songs. And he would write songs in a balladist style, and he was doing great in Sweden, right? And so, uh, you know, um, she and I decided to stay there because the kids wanted us to stay there. The wife wanted us to stay there. My bud wanted me to stay there. Everybody wanted us to stay there. So that was going to be our plan. We're going to stay, so we didn't have to pay rent. We could because they had a nice big house, and you know, and I was just keeping an eye on my bud, and every time he seemed to get a little, flustered, and Don, she got back into playing music with him, and so that was great. And sometimes when he'd go on the road, we'd go with him and he'd play up a backup with the violin, right? And he said, "Hey, did you ever think of playing electric bass?" And she said, "What?" And because just like a violin, it's got four strings, and it's set on the frets just like a violin. There are none, right? So she said, "What?" And he said, "Listen, I got this bass," and it was a beautiful like Stratocaster, but it was a teeny little bass, but had great pickups. You plugged it into a bass amp, and it was like gigantic bass. So she had this little cute fire engine red bass that she could play bass, right? So she really started to get into it, and they she played accordion. They got her a Swedish accordion, and they got the real deal gigantic thing with a zillion keys and buttons, and it plugged into an amplifier, so it played like an electric piano. So she was having a great time, you know, connecting to music, and and just living this pretty nobody else kind of lifestyle, right? And she's taking pictures of everything. She's just happy as a clam. They in that little town, they had the community center that had a really beautiful dark room that really nobody used. So that was her dark. I mean, she was a happy girl, right? So we take this journey to Egypt, and we're going to go meet my friend, and it's not quite my. He was taking care of the loft, right? Anyway, and we call him up every now and she said, "How's Burke? How's Burke?" And he would go, well, Burke's okay." Yeah, and never say anything. And she would say, "I don't know." And she just got more and more upset. And then we had the incident on the ferry, all of the stuff that we were doing was keeping her really happy and distracted. But when we got on that airplane to go to Greece, she started, "I don't know. I feel bad. There's something really, really bad that's going to happen." And I've been living with her now going on 3 years. When she's at, it's like, the plane's gonna crash or something. It's like anyway, so we get um, uh, to, Athens. We spend a couple of nights there, and then we meet up with John, and he wants to go to, Delphi. And, you know, um, and the whole time that we're in Athens, she said, "So how's Burke? How's Burke? Well, tell me about Burke." And he goes, "She okay? Okay, it's okay. Everything's." And I know that something's wrong because now the way John is acting, I know John a long time, and he's a Catholic, so he doesn't want to tell the truth. you know, Catholics do everything to not, you know, deal with anything. You know, and so um, I basically um, I don't push it either. I'm gonna wait till the right time happens. Anyway, so we're on the bus, and they don't sit with us. They sit like 3 or 4 seats up ahead. And so this bus keeps breaking down, and we're on this windy mountain road, and it's going like 3 miles an hour, and there's miles of traffic. And then every so often, every 4 miles, he stops where he can pull off, and the motor is smoking, and the cars go by. And then every time we stop, there's a guy on the side of the road with a little rag of tools, and he opens up and hits the motor a few times. So this is how we're driving up this, and it's a cliff on one side that goes down like 5,000 feet, and a mountain on the other side, and and big trucks. This is 1970 something, and so before the EU really made everyone rich, kind of. And so, so we're going up there, and one of the times we stop, the guy goes, "Well, it's going to take a while. Why doesn't everybody get out? And there's a little place you can sit over there, and there's a little stand over there. You can get something to drink or a kebab or something. You're going to be here a while." So basically, Donna, corners John and says, "What happened? I know something happened. Tell me." And she's about to like hit him. She picks up, a tool from the guy with the little rag of tools, and "What happened?" And he goes, "Burke died." He slowed down. He looked sad. He wasn't distracted by going after. He missed you. And John does a jujitsu and puts the guilt on Donna for being away. And knowing John, he probably did something inappropriate that Burke died because he had this talent of doing that. One time I went away, and when I came back on one of my vacations, and I set everything up. He didn't have to do anything. He just had to keep an eye on things. This was before I met Donna. And I had a big shop. and he decided to make some money by making spice racks. So he got all this wood, and the elevator guy wouldn't bring it up. So during the weekend, John saw me how I would, turn the elevator on when we weren't supposed to use it, and he used it, and he had this. He filled it up with wood, like these big long boards that were like 20 feet long, and he got them jammed up between the weight and the elevator, and that was that. And it was like, fuck, fuck, right. And when I came back, before anybody showed up, I came back on a Sunday, and nobody was around except John was like, and he was like gathering all his stuff and getting into a cab. I said, John, what happened? And he goes, and he ran away. And I went up and I saw that he had been screwing around with my table saw and my tools, and he had made these stupid, crappy spice racks, right? That just wouldn't. I wouldn't buy one of these things. I wouldn't even take it if you gave it to me. And he had jammed all this wood up. But basically, all I did was I went up top because I, fixed that elevator so many times, and you could crank it down. So I, took the safety off, and I took the clutch out, and I cranked it down until it got to the street, and all of the wood just slid right the frig out onto the street. And I said in a very loud voice, "Anybody want this wood? Come and get it." Then got in the elevator, hit this button, it reset everything upstairs, and took it upstairs. Right? And Monday came around, and I knew that the super would show up around 6 in the morning, so I got up at 5:30. I went down to his office, made coffee. I brought some really good coffee, and made coffee. Went over to Mr. Tucci Fritos and got some Cubano sandwiches. And when he came down for breakfast, I was waiting there with the Cubano sandwiches and really great coffee, and not just cups of coffee from Mister. I did have some espressos, but I got coffee for his coffee pot, and so for the next week he'd be happy with that coffee. So anyway, he comes in, smells the sandwich, he looks around, he goes, "So what happened?" I said, "Well, that pinhead, John." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I explained exactly what he did." Oh, so that's what all that splintery wood out front is? I said, "Yep." So how much is left there? He goes, "Well, how much was there?" I said, "I don't know, maybe 400 or 500 board feet." And he goes, "Well, he says, no, whatever good wood is gone. It's just like splintered up wood." I said, "Okay. Are you okay with this?" He says, "The elevator in good shape." I said, "Perfect. I reset everything, greased everything up. It's all good. There's no problem." We lit up a spliff. We smoked down there. We had a Cubano sandwich, but that was John. Right? So back to Greece. Don's about to cave his head in with a tool, and I grab it out and I kind of pull her off, and we're not that far from Delphi, you know, and so we grab our little bag, and she's, "I don't want to see you. You got my bag. I'll kill you, motherfucker. I kill you, kill you, kill you. You killed my cat. You killed my cat." And I said, "Come on, Don." And so we we go up, and we're coming into Delphi, and it's like 3 in the morning, and we're a few miles out from Delphi, and going up that road, the only place you're going is Delphi, right? So we're on the side of the road. I put my thumb out. Car stops. Very nice. Some people German. We jump in the back, and I know a little German, so I'm trying to make joke, and they're laughing. They said, "Good try, buddy, but we'll speak English. But thanks for trying." And they try to talk to Don, and she's just no. She's not going to talk. She's not. I said, "We've had a bad night tonight. Are you two okay?" I said, "Yeah, we're good, but she pretty much hates everyone in the world but me. So don't get her upset. I've taken all the weapons from her." So we 40 minutes later, they drive us into Delphi, and they're going to stay in a nice hotel. And they said, "We're just going to spend the evening. Do this is the middle of the week, and it's not quite the season, and there's extra. We're going to get you a room, so you guys can take a shower and a bath." And my wife, Don goes, "Bath?" Because she loves baths. Oh yeah, they got a really nice room, has really nice baths. And the chef said he'd make us something to eat. So He makes a nice omelets for everybody and some vegetables and a few other things, some yummies. We have, some stuff, and they give us a real thermos with, espresso in it, a big, like, 5 coffee cups worth of espresso. This for the morning when you need to get a jolt. Just, So we are, have a beautiful night's sleep. Then we, and they come knock on the door around 10 in the morning. And they say, we're late sleepers and we don't have to get out till 11. So, but we thought they're still having a brunch. They have a very nice brunch. Let's take, so they, these people picked us up, took us to a hotel. We had a nice, you know, early morning, 3 in the morning little snack. And then we had a really big, big brunch. Fish and meat and you name it, out on a terrace with a view of the, you know, all the Greek stuff and the mountains. And it was really gorgeous. So we went with them and went on a kind of a tour. And, and this tour bus, air conditioned and everything, um, pulled in, and they were going to do the rounds and explain all the buildings and everything, and then they're going to take you on a little tour, and then so that was what we did. So we're coming, going around, and we pass the, John and his whatever, his the girl he's with, the woman he's with. Basically, that bus is just pulling in. It's like 1 in the afternoon, and everyone is stinky hot, and the bus is still smoking, and we go by them, and there's John and whatever her name is. Donna hits the glass like she's going to kill him, but the glass is there, right? And they're right there, right? Like maybe less than a foot. Bang! It's like this noise as he's beating. It's like, you kill my cat! You're gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill and everyone in the buses will kind of look at her, but it's nice and air conditioned, and they've got little cocktails, and it's, stewardess of the bus is like giving us cocktails while the guy's explaining everything in real detail, and the bus pulls away, right? And I said, Don, relax. Why do we have to? I said, relax, relax, relax. So we go on it, we go through that tour, and it's really extensive. And we go places that other tourists aren't allowed to go see, the secret room of this and that, and so we stop at this little nice place. It's getting towards the end of the gig, and it's a beautiful late afternoon. It's still summertime, so it's still sunny, and Donna just wants to walk around in the Acropolis and all the old buildings on this, side that the majority of the tour. So we're not going to see John and that woman. Um, and so we have this nice little nosh. We leave our ways, and the guy gives me like a couple $100. Don't ask for anything, but he realizes that we had nothing, and so he goes, "This will get you." And we explained where we were coming from, Sweden, and the gig we were doing, and he smiled. Wish we were that young. And so Don and I were in our late, early, mid 20s, and these weeks were in their German folks were in their 50s. So anyway, we go our separate ways. We have our little bag, and we are walking around. And so I'm a theater guy, and there's this meadow, a big meadow. It's like between two, could be mountains, but they've been walked on so much they are just these kind of hills, right? And I said, Don, see up there, I'm gonna go sit up there and meditate. I'm being called to do that. You okay? I don't need to be with you, right? You're even if you see John, you're not going to kill him. No, I'm just walk the other way. I said, good, good. You're getting better. And so I said, that's where I'll be. You need me? That's where I'll be, right? And don't go, go shoot all the stuff you want to, but stay in sight of me up there, right? And I'm gonna have my little binoculars. I'll keep an eye on you. And so I go up there, and I, watch her in my little binoculars, go take pictures, and she, stays within a quarter mile of my ability to see her from the top of this hill, right? So I'm looking down, and I am realizing that this is a special place. A lot of things have gone down. This is more. There've been so many tourists up there through all those buildings that energy was kind of almost worn out. But this place, it really, it's just a field, so there are no people there, right? So I'm sitting there, and so I decide I'm gonna, Don looks like she's okay. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna go into sleep. So we're gonna try and do this. It should be fun. I am going to meditate and go back to that place, and I want you to see it. Breathe deep, see it clearly. There you are, up in Delphi in the hills, right around the Acropolis and all the other Greek buildings that are up there in Delphi. There's the Oracle of Delphi over there, and here I am, right? I'm sitting up there. And what do I hear? But I hear German, and I hear, you know, the plays of Sappho's being, being spoken in German, modern German. And I kind of pop out and go, and I'm not in state anymore, but I'm still hearing it. And I get my little binoculars and down, down, down in the valley of these hills, which is maybe, I don't know, by meters, I'm thinking meters since I'm there, maybe 400 meters from where I am. And I'm kind of above them by maybe 60 meters, right? So I'm like in a peanut gallery. And then I realize I see it where they're standing, it's a stage. And where I'm sitting is where the audience was. And when I was in state, I sensed this place could be filled with at least 1,000 people easy. And all those great Greek plays were played right there first. That was the sacred place where they're played, right? For all the high mucky mucks, right? And it just hit me like a lightning bolt that that theater wasn't the kind of, I mean, the theater like Broadway, and that's why Broadway and that kind of theater I used to work in. That's why it's so special because it's still connected to that part of the Greek motif, right? And so anyway, I kind of said "yo," and I heard in German, "Did someone say yo?" And I can hear it like right in my ear because it was so. I said "up here," and they're like looking straight up, like God was talking to them. I said "no, behind you, up here." They turned around and saw me, and I'm like 600 meters away, like maybe 3 football fields or 4, and I'm waving, and they look up, and they kind of say, "Come on down." So, and I say, "Come on up," and so we meet in the middle, and I said, "Were you doing Euripides play?" She said, "Yeah, yeah," and I said, "You were doing it in German." I said, "Well, we're German," so and we anyway. The guy said, "You could hear it up there." I said, "That's how good the acoustics are." So this is a place, and nowhere have I've been in a lot of theaters. I've worked on a lot of theaters, helped build a lot of theaters. I worked on a lot of outdoor theaters, and I've never been in a place that had acoustics like this. I mean, I'm like 6 football fields from these guys, and I can hear them just. I said, "You weren't screaming. No, we were just talking." When you said, "Hey," we thought it was God talking because we could barely hear you. I said, "Well, you walk up there, and I'm going to walk down here." So I did, and I started talking to them, and they were like, so by this time, Donna comes down and they come down and we start talking and they have a little bag of nashi stuff and we have our little bag of nashi stuff. So we kind of sit there and talk about things and share our yummies. And then they say, "Oh, show Donna. We'll stay down here and talk German and you go up there and listen to us." And I said, "Okay." So we went up there and she goes, "Wow." So we go down, and by this time it's now maybe 8 o'clock, still somewhat bright, you know, not like it's bright in Sweden during the summer because the sun never goes down. It gets just a little gray. So anyway, and that's why the government had this gig where they let everyone take a vacation, or and because people were going nuts because half the year it's always black as night, and the other it's always sun never sets. So anyway, it could make you skitsy, and that's why the Swedes are just a little interesting. So And along with the fence, woo, the fence, that girl who's the president, who they're all getting on her case because she's a party girl. I mean, she's coming. She's in her late 20s. Come on. So, anyway, um, the Germans who we were being amazed by the Delphi theater, open theater there, they said they had to go. That their bus was going to leave at 10 p.m. and you know they were in the tour and they kind of split from the tour. I mean, they were in the tour that we went on, but they were on part of the tour that instead the folks we were with had their own car and this got on the tour in Delphi. So anyway, so these two folks had to get on, so we were there. And I said, she goes, so where are we going to sleep tonight? I said, I saw this really nice patch of grass down by the stage. It looked very protected, like there was nothing around where people would notice if we set up camp and slept there. So I, you know, we went over there. We put on our bedrolls, and it was really nice. It was like longish, really nice grass, but someone been mowing it, not a lot, just enough to not have it high, not be really buggy. And it was really nice. The earth was really soft, and there were no rocks, and it was just the perfect place just to sleep out under the stars. And we were down in a section, so none of the light from that town was even. It was like the sky was darker than dark and beautiful, and the stars were out. There wasn't a cloud, and there was no moon, and so you know, we were looking up, we're talking, and we're cuddling, and she starts to cry. I said, "No, I know it's sad that Burke is gone, but how long? You've had Burke for 15 years. Burke, it's probably just I knew in my bones either John or his girlfriend through, not by malice, they weren't mean or cruel or bad people, but they could be just like with the spice racks, just incompetent to the nth degree. So, and those are the kind of people who are running our society because John had more degrees than, you know, a, a thermometer, right? That were really like he matriculated through everything, right? And he was, anal retentive, so he was a great, you know, scholastic, right? So, and after this story, I'll tell you the story about John. What happened to John? So, I basically we're sleeping, so we're talking. She's crying. She falls asleep in my arms, and I'm like, just well, this was an interesting couple of days, and so we I fall asleep with her in my arms. And so, hey, Jamie, Miss Jane. And so I'm telling a story about Donna Ann, my first training wife, or my only training wife, but my first wife. Um, we're in Delphi, Greece, and little to our knowledge, we are sleeping on top of the Oracle of Delphi, right? And we fall asleep after this big adventure. You'll have to roll the tape back to see it. And I wake up and Donna's sitting straight up, and she's going do 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 do, and she's kind of a musician, so she knows scales, and she's kind of going through a scale, but in a very strange way. And so I say, Don, are you okay? And she goes, "Do, do, 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 do," and she's looking straight up. And so I look straight up, and right above us was the biggest, hunkiness, gigantic flying saucer you ever wanted to see, right? And it was at least a good 5,000 feet above us, but it was gigantic 5,000 feet above us, right? So, and it had a ring of lights, and every time she go, "Doo, doo, 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 doo," it would like flicker in response to her, like, "Doo, doo, 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 doo." And so I'm looking at this thing going, she's talking to a flying saucer. Don, wake up, wake up. And she's like not waking up. She's and the lights are going bling, bling, bling. And they're flickering around, but because it's 5,000 feet up there, That's why I know it's 5,000 feet because the lights looking at it are pretty bright, but the shadow on the ground is pretty dim. So, like, that's pretty high up there. So, yeah, I'm looking at this thing and I get this sense of not scared, but like, and no one's talking to me, but it's like, how do you feel? What's going on? What do you want? Da 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 da. Do do do. And so I'm listening to her going do 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 da. And so so I go, oh, why don't you guys come down and visit? So as soon as I thought that, the thing starts to lower down, lower down, and lower down, and lower down. And it's like, and it gets to maybe, I don't know, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,500 feet above us. And now it's really big. And now the light is really making shadows on the ground that you can kind of see really without kind of, oh, what is that? Like, uh-oh. And as soon as I said, uh-oh, it stopped. And I said, guys, we've had a hard day and a very interesting and stressful 3 weeks. I don't know if we're ready for, contact. And then it just kind of lifted up and floated away outside of, not being directly above us and just went in front of us and went in front of us and went further off towards that mountain range that was in front of us. As soon as it got close to it, it went sideways and shot like a blink of an eye was gone. And not like you couldn't see it going, going, going. Blink of an eye was gone. Zing! You know, it went into warp drive. And that's when she goes, why am I sweating? Why am I sitting up? What was, you know, and I explained to what happened. And she goes, I don't know, Al. I said, why don't we just, you know, go? I think we've had enough of Delphi, don't you? I said, yes, we've seen everything. I've taken a ton of pictures. I'm good. I said, why don't we just go get down on that road? As the sun rises, we still got some nashi things in the in our bag. We'll just eat a little here. We still have that big thermos. They said we could keep, and it was a nice thermos. And so we had a few shots of that espresso, and we got down a hill and got on that road. And we are out on the road by 7ish, and and we get to a nice place. It was a nice tree, nice place to pull up. And we don't walk. We're not going to walk. We're going to just put and she made a little sign in Greek, Athens. It's spelled the same way, kind of. And we had a little sign saying Athens, right? And so, um, we're there for about no more than 15, 20 minutes. And the car stops, and it's some Americans. And you speaking, oh, yeah, we're from New York. Oh, we're from New York. So we get in their car, we go to Athens, right? We get there, and the tour that we had gotten to, from Stockholm there, they were still there. We had to 2 days later. So I went to the hotel that everybody was staying at. I found the guy who was the tour guy there, and he's the one who said, "Oh, you guys should go to Athens." And we had, to Delphi, and that's when John got a hold of us. Said, "Let's go to Delphi." Anyway, so we got back on the plane. We spent 2 nights there. Nice shower, a couple nice meals. Walked around Stockholm, which is really a beautiful capital city, and we took the bus back to a Forsörga, and and that's that story. So the story about John, and it's I'll do it in 15 minutes. So pretty much after that event, had nothing to do with John, right? And basically Donna took over the loft completely, right? And she already had, but the year and a half that I had it, and I was doing a lot of traveling, so I had John. He came to study at NYU. And so he was living in this little teeny thing. So every time I could say, "Hey, John, why don't you just stay here?" He would. And then when I would take a trip, he would, keep an eye on it, right? And then one time I came back and he had kind of rented the whole thing out without it, it's not in his name. And so I said, "No, these people have to leave." And he said, "Well, I've taken their money." I said, "Well, that's you took the money. I didn't. I gotta go." And so I don't know. And so I hit the elevator button. I said, "Kirby, take out the trash." So Kirby was like 6'8", weighed 270 pounds. Was a linebacker in football until he twisted his leg. He knew Aikido. He had been in the Marines. You know, you did not pull on Superman's cape. And so he said, "All right, everyone out," and they got out. And so, um, and then Donna came into my life, and then for 2 years we were doing this. And this one time, John said, "Can I? You're going to go to Europe? Can I just keep an eye on things?" And I said, "Okay." So he did, and and that's the Greek thing, right? So, um, Don and I, blah blah blah, a lot space between that story and this story, and I won't go on about that chunk another day. But back in the early '80s, John is going to get his PhD at NYU in anthropology, right? And like I said, John is a brilliant guy, right? And so I've showed you pictures of guys at NYU. I don't know if I have it. Rob's picture. He was head of cultural anthropology at NYU, and so when John was going there, I kind of hung out there, and John was, and I was getting into demographics. Right, I took some courses at NYU in demographics, and whatever you call it. When you're doing stuff for the community, oh, I forget what it's called, but it's you know, city planning, I guess, as close as my brain is getting to, but there's another name for it. But anyway, so I was at NYU, and I said I love being in university, so I was, part of that. And again, John's matriculating. I'm just there because I know all these people, and they want me to do stuff, right? So they give me my own little carol in the library. And John, who's should have a carol in that library, doesn't because he doesn't push for one. He doesn't know how to schmooze, and so I got one. And so he basically said, "Can I you share your carol?" I said, "Sure," because I really didn't use it much, right? And so I only used it, and I never used the carol part of it. I just used the access to the reserve library, to go find things that you can't take out of the library, really special books, right? Now everything's online. So anyway, so he's doing that, and I'm doing my thing, and so I get more and more into his what he's studying, and it's interesting, and his thesis is quite interesting. And the guy's head of the department is a guy named DJ Markley, right? And so John is looking, and this is like in the 1980s, right? And John is looking at um, the um, Mayan calendar, right? And early '80s, and so we don't go to South America, but DJ Markley, the head of his department, goes all the time. So John is putting forth this thesis about how the Mayan calendar is an algorithm and that you can figure out where things are, right? And I had been exposed to esoteric technology, so that's very close to what looking glass is or remote viewing is. And John was developing an algorithm to be able to mathematically push the button and see the information, right? And so DJ Markley basically was a shill for DARPA and the hidden hand to lead the scholastic world this way, which is away from the truth of what was happened in human race before, and you know that way was what John was looking at, the truth. And see, that was John was a lodestone of truth. He was quite amazing that way. So I'm all about the truth. So he is, going there with it, and I kind of help him out because I start turning him on. So through Christine, I found all these really great computer programmers. So we're looking at that, and he's about to give his dissertation. and we've done all the research. We've got all the algorithms. He's shown mathematically you can just do this. It's like Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine. And during this time, John was still living like in a cracker box, cockroach, crappy place. He was the worst, And I would be in abandoned buildings and why do you live here, neighbor? Oh, I can't live in it. But he was living in a way worse neighborhood, way worse because I was living in neighborhoods that nobody was there. And I found, Christine, she lived on, and this is when I met John Lennon around, way early, 1980-ish, 79, 80. I don't know when John got assassinated. But anyway, it was after Ronnie got shot, and then the Pope got shot, and they both survived it, and John died, right? So, because he was truly assassinated. Those guys just, those were just events. Like the death of the Queen is just something to hide something else. I'm sure she's in Bermuda drinking cocktails with little umbrellas. But don't believe a word I say. This is just for your entertainment's sake. Nothing is real. All is illusion. It's fake news. It really is. So anyway, County Boy, living over there on the west side, one time, Christian and I took a little walk to, where Grant's tomb is, and we had a little picnic up on the hill. And I see on the other side of the West Side Highway, around 72nd Street, there's a road that goes under the highway right to the river. And it's just like the road is like right over there. Here's Grant's tomb, and the road's right over there. So let's go down there and see what that is. We finish our little picnic, wrap it up, throw all the rest of the stuff in the garbage pail, and walk over there. And we go underneath West Side Highway, and it comes out into a marina. Right? So the marina's there, and there's some boats there, but there's more empty slips and there's some cars parked here, right? And it's like, maybe 4 blocks from Christine's house. And so there's a guy in this little office, and I go, so are there any slips for rent? I said, oh yeah, no one ever rents anything here. I said, oh really? So what do you get for that? He goes, well, you get a slip, you get electricity, you get water, you get a septic line, and you get 2 parking spaces. Said, parking spaces? Because she wants to get a car. Because she makes a lot of money, so she wants to get a car. And I had this house on Long Island. We had to take the train, and then we had to get my truck out there. Blah blah. She wants to get a car, and she goes, so you get 2 parking spots for a slip? How much does a slip cost? He goes, $79 a month. She goes, what? I said, how about we take 2? Can we take 2? And he goes, sure. $80, 160. How about we round it up to $200 a month? I said, so you keep the change. So now he's our best friend. He keeps an eye on everything. So I said, you know what? Has anyone ever built a boathouse? He goes, no. I said, is there any rules saying you can't have a boathouse? He goes, no. He goes, what's a boathouse? He goes, it's a house instead of a boat, but it's on the water. He goes, oh, I know what you're talking about, like with 55-gallon drums, and you build a platform. And he said, yes. And I said, so we're going to have 2, so it's going to take up 2, 1 whole slip and a chunk more, because I'm going to put it across the thing, and the path that would come on either side of our slip will be our front door. So that should be nice. I said, yep. And when we're not here, you can use it. Oh, now he's our real friend. So, I kind of draw a drawing, and I said, I'm going to come back with my boys in a week or so. And he goes, okay, I'll be ready for you. And so he was. He had like 20 55-gallon drums and a whole bunch of wood and 2x6s and beams. And we built, gigantic, it was like 40 feet first floor, and we had 2 other floors on top. Right? And each had a gigantic deck that went out to the Hudson, right? And we still had 3/4 of a slip. I mean, you could, if it wasn't a gigantic yacht, you could dock any boat on our other 3/4 of a slip. Right? So we're having a great time. And Christine finishes her gig. She sues GE. She makes millions, and she gets this other gig to start NYIT, New York Institute of Technology. So she's got lots of, you know, kudos. She's got money in the bank, and she still loves me, but she has basically resigned herself to just be a great scientist, scholar, and have me as her good buddy with when she wanted to get frisky, and if I wasn't with anybody. So that was our agreement. And so she went off to NYT. I stayed there, and so I had now four parking spots, and I didn't even have a vehicle. My vehicle was in Long Island, and so I rented them out to people who lived in the Upper West Side who if they were going to get a parking spot that was going to cost them $1,000 a week. So I rented them out each for 5 grand a year up front. And so, well, they were happy, and I was happy, and so that became the really party spot. And then John one day, so I'm still kind of fooling around with him at NYU, and he's getting close, and so he goes, I need a place to stay for a few months because I just can't get any work done because the cockroaches are eating all the paper. So I said, yeah, no problem. Because this place was big. So it's like his mind was everything I ever did always freaking blew his mind because his mind was all wrapped up in Catholicism's motif of suppression and not not having anything, right? And so, but he was all about the truth. So he was real. His idea was really spot on, right? So I basically, so he's doing his thing. I'm helping him out. I'm doing a little research here and there. My buddies who are the, guys who can write really good algorithms are enthralled with his idea. I'm making a magic box that can look at the future and past. Right? So, a super app before apps were apps, right? And so, he it's time to give his thesis, and he turns it into his boss and the guy head of the department. And I said his name, but it slipped my head again. What's his name? It'll pop in there. But anyway, so John gives it to him because that guy has to look at it and give it. But John has brought it down to the printer to be printed so it can be put in a journal and his peers can have peer review, right? So his name just flew right by. The head of a department at NYU. And so, and this guy's always going to Brazil and Colombia and all the cocaine states, and he's going on like a diplomat visa kind of thing because he's this high whoop-de-doo anthropologist. And so, I almost had his name. It'll pop in there. So, so a few days go by, phone rings, and so that's it. DJ Markley, that's the guy's name. Go look that guy up. DJ Markley. So he goes, Al, have you read? I said, of course, I know, I'm on, John at least gave me some creds on his publication there. Yeah, I see it. So he goes, you know it? And I said, yes. He goes, he can't publish this. I said, well, he already did. He says, I've stopped it. Goes, listen, I'm gonna cut. So you're in that thing, the right? I said, yep. He said, you come to 72nd Street, go under the FDR Drive, and there you are. I said, yep, you'll see it. It's a house. There's all these slips. Most of them don't have boats. This is a house. And he goes, okay. So, and I'd been living there about a year and a half, right? I was with Christine for a year and a half, and this was at the end, not at the end, but at the turning, the changing of our relationship. But we're still sweet and we're still buds, and no one's listening to this story anymore. And so I'll just finish it up quick. Then I'm going to go to my phone and see if that works. So who's there? So DJ Markley shows up, right? And he knocks on the door. We let him in, and he's got a briefcase with him. And he goes, "Listen, John, your work is brilliant, but we can't publish it." And oh, someone's calling. Oh, it's Rev. Hey, buddy, there you are.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. You're live on the internet.
Well, I'm over at the beach with my family over in South Carolina. It's pretty nice.
Is it sunny and breezy and sweet?
Life is sweet. It's good, Al. What's happening with you?
Well, I'm here in the deep green. Have you looked at any of my YouTubes in the last few days or week?
Not over the past week, no.
Well, that's kind of what's going on. I'm in a place, me, it's always heaven. It's a gorgeous place here. I have zip money. My front end is about to fall off my car, trying to figure out how to get struts on it. It's going to cost me about $500, and I don't have that. And I've stopped whining to my audience. I'm not talking about oh, send me money to PayPal, because that's when they leave, right? And it'll work out, right? And I had my cataracts worked on about a month ago, right? I told you that,
Hmm.
right? So I can see again. And I told you a story about I didn't have anybody drive, and I walked into a church, and this guy drove me there, right? I told you that,
Yes.
right? And they were giving the sermon of the Good Samaritan when they did it, right?
Ideal.
Right. So he drove me there, and I told him stories, and I had no idea who he was. I just thought he was a guy at the church being nice. Well, he's head of the whole school system in the neighboring county, right? And I showed him all these stuff, and we went to the doctor, and I couldn't get my eyes operated unless I brought a real human being with me who would say, "I'm his driver. I'm going to take him back home because I can't see after they do this." But because of COVID, they won't let him sit in this gigantic waiting room when there was nobody in the waiting room. He had to wait. Their protocol, he had to wait in the car.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, a Nazi all the way. And so I said, fine. I said, when are they going to take me in? She said, about 20 minutes. Well, I'm going to sit with him for 20 minutes out there, and then I'll come in and you'll grab me. So, or you come out and grab me, and I'll go with you. So anyway, I go there, and I give him my little laptop with one of my novels on it. And I said, here, read this. It'll keep you entertained because it took about an hour. So he came back, and he just was scratching his head. And he took me to lunch and at the Golden Corral. Did you ever eat lunch in that place?
Very nice.
Right. But you got to pay up front, right? Everyone's waiting online. It's kind of a cafeteria sideways.
Hmm.
Well, I can't see shit, so I just walk by everyone. I can smell the food. I pad around. I find a plate. I load it up with stuff. I find a nice booth. I sit down. There's no silverware, so I stick my head in the food. I'm eating like a cow or a pig, right? And the manager comes over to say, "Sir, where's your receipt? Why don't you have silverware?" And I'm wearing, welder's goggles, and it's a woman. And I go, "Let me look at your palm." And I can't see anything. And I read her palm, and she starts to cry. I say, "It's your birthday, and no one has said anything to you, right? So happy." How do you know it's my birthday? Because I heard her talking about it. I can't see anything, but I can hear pretty good. So that's why I knew everything about her. Anyway, so she's a manager, and now she's my waitress. And my friend finally finds me, and he said, "How are you eating? You didn't pay for this?" And she goes, "It's on me, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, so for that whole day, I keep doing stuff like that, and it's just blowing his mind. And then he goes, and he takes me to this school. He goes, "You need to teach here." I said, "Good, I'll teach here." He goes, "It's $80 a day." And so I fill out all the paperwork so they can do a total check on me, blah, 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 right? And so I keep going there, and I like work there, but I'm not on the payroll yet. And so I'm really kind of changing this whole school. I'm talking to every kid. I'm talking about to do their best. Don't worry about being perfect. Just do your best. and that'll be the best. And all the kids who have issues, they're having less and less issues. So about 2.5 weeks, I did this, and then basically he came back and said, "Well, they haven't said." He said, "I've been asking about you, and they don't say anything." And he said, "When they don't say anything, it means that you weren't an axe murderer, but they don't really want you to work here. So instead of saying no, he can't work here, they just don't say anything." So he goes, "You can come and visit, but I can't pay you anything." I said, "Yeah, but I drive my car. It's like about to fall apart." And anyway, long story short, I like doing it because it's really amazing effect on these kids. So I do it a couple more days, and I get them all spun up so they can take care of themselves if I'm never there ever again. And the day before I leave, they send in all these people to test them. And you know how Google should be paying us, right? For all the times that, hey, Google looked up this, but they're just expanding their database, right? And then they're selling us. They're making money on every time we ask a question. And anyway, and that's what this school is way off. It's not in the big city. It's way, way out there in the middle of nowhere. And it's their isolated laboratory. And they're treating these kids like Nazis with the Jews. They're not quite starving them or killing them. But the food they are feeding them isn't the best. I mean, so I eat there, and they have nice meals, but they also, you can have the nice vegetable and the rice and the chicken or the fried Twinkie, right? So, of course, the kids have the fried Twinkie. So, anyway, I don't think I'll be going there again. People saying, no, I'm not no, just like. And so the head guy was there and we talked and he didn't say, "Oh, we don't want you." He just said, "Well, you can come and visit when you want." I said, "So there's no money for me, eh?" I said, "No." "So how about you? You're a rich guy. Why don't you fix my car?" And he just said, "Well, the Bible says." I said, "Yeah, the Bible says." Okay.
Oh my.
Yes. So what is truly interesting for me was that I was able to be a real good and the school is a great school. The teachers are great teachers. They really are doing a great job with these kids. And when I had to go take all the tests and stupid stuff for the bureaucracy of their school, their other schools are like if they were in Chicago or New York or the worst of the worst. And because the real rural areas are just as bad as the real urban areas. And it's not, I mean, there isn't a black person for 200 miles from here. And there are black people closer, but not around here. And yet they are treated like poor black people. And so it's really obvious that what's going on in America really isn't a racial thing. That's just an excuse, but it's a class thing. And they don't have to do all the stuff that's going on. They don't have to do any all these wars, all these pandemics, all these. Oh, we're not going to have anything to eat. They are just squeezing the human race, just like the Catholic Church and the Hidden Hand and the Roman Empire did during the Dark Ages. Right? We're heading into it'll be a technological dark age. So that's my observation. So I've been writing novels. So my novels have been kind of. Um, so do you have Google? Is your the emails you send me, is that a Google email?
Yes.
So have I sent you any novels?
I've received one or two, yes.
Okay, so you got them. So if you've been reading or looking at my novels, you will have got a sense of what I'm thinking about and writing about. So
it's pretty deep.
It's pretty deep. It's like swimming in concrete and lead. Yes, because I'm exactly what the church did when they had the mass in Latin. Everything is fucking code. And same with the Hebrews. The Torah is all in code, right? So my thing is a cartoon facade of some really deep stuff. So, and I write it because it's good for me. It gets shit out of me and gets me thinking about things. So, and I enjoy writing. What else am I going to do out here? I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. So